First, we remove the wheel. Using some spray lubricant, we spray some on the underhand bolts. We'll let this seep in. Using a 15mm socket and probably a cheater bar, we'll loosen these up. We're going to save these bolts for later because we'll need them again for the new shock. Then on the top of the shock, we'll spray some more lubricant. And then using an 18mm socket and probably a cheater bar as well, we'll remove the shock mount from the frame of the vehicle. It's going to be a little bit tough because there is some Loctite on these bolts, so they're in there pretty good. Now that we have the shock removed from the vehicle, we need to take the mount from the old shock because we'll need it for the new shock. Using a 15mm wrench and some vice grips to hold down the piston rod, we can loosen up the nut. You might need a lot of spray-on lubricant or WD-40 to get it loose, as it's on there pretty tight. We take off the mount as well as the protective sleeve because we'll need them for the new shock. Now the new shock comes with a replacement X nut, but as you can see it's a little bit thinner than the original one, so we use a couple of washers that aren't included. You have to supply your own. And then we reattach the boot assembly and the mount to the shock. The nut that comes with the new shock actually requires a 17mm wrench. And same as before, we'll need some vice grips to hold down the piston rod to tighten it. The extra washers really give you a little bit more space to attach it. Next, we put the shock back into the vehicle. I prefer putting on the bottom bolts first, before putting on the top bolts. Once you have the bottom bolts on, you'll need to put some Loctite on the top bolts. You use blue Loctite, which is Loctite number 242, and it has about a 5-minute working rate. So I like to put the bottom ones first, then put on the top ones in order to get them nice and tight. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit to cover the threads. And go ahead and tighten up your bolts. Now, there aren't any published specifications online that I could find about the torque setting for these bolts, but they're around there pretty tight, and I did find some information about previous fusions, and they're about 70 to 80 pounds, so that's probably a good rule of thumb to torque these bolts to. But then again, do it at your own disclaimer. And then we tighten up the bottom ones. You might need to use your jack to lift up your A-frame just so that the bolt holes land up right.